As I like to introduce our first speaker this morning, which is going to be Dr. Karen Mathiak, and she's a member of the Georgia Chiropractic Association's Board of Directors. She's also the state representative for District 73. Last year, she's helped move our fair copay bill through the House, and it's successfully passed, and which we're very thankful for. This year, she introduced House Bill 119, which will hopefully make it easier for medical doctors and chiropractors to form corporations so that they can work together. And she's also in the process of introducing legislation that will add chiropractors to the existing lien law. So please welcome Dr. Karen Mathiak, our first chiropractor to serve in Georgia's House of Representatives. Dr. Mathiak.
Thank you, Dr. Aurario. That was very sweet. You know, we've been friends a long time, my friend. So it's kind of fun to be in such great presence. Thank you, thank you. Good morning, everybody from the Capitol. That's where I am this morning. Vince, you already talked a little bit about the bills that we're pushing this year. As soon as I'm done here, I'm running over with Leader Burns to talk about the lien law and see what we can do at the leadership level to get that moving a little easier. So that's my goals for today. Everybody has to test twice a week up here. So that's one of the reasons I don't have a mask on right now. I'm in my own office, so I'm able to not wear a mask. But today we are so honored to have my good friend, Attorney General Chris Carr. And Chris, thank you for being here with us this morning.
Pleasure.
We value.
I'm just sorry we can't be in person, but it's great to be on Zoom.
Yes, thank you. Let me tell everybody a little bit about Attorney General Carr and where he comes from, where he's headed. And I'm just so proud to have you in such a great place for the state of Georgia, because I know how hard you work. We've worked together a little bit this year on some election issues, and I can't thank you enough for giving us your time in some of the issues that we needed some help with. So thank you. Attorney General was appointed in 2016 by Governor Nathan Deal. And then in 2018, our attorney was elected to our statewide Attorney General's office for a full 4-year term. So we're so glad that election's over and moving forward. Attorney General Carr oversees a team of nearly 600 people on his team who defend all state agencies, boards, and authorities. And on any one given week, AG Carr and his law department are managing more than 21,000 matters. That's a lot of people to help, and you do such a great job. I'm so thankful that it's you. Chris has chosen to focus on issues that affect all Georgia communities, ending human trafficking, combating the opioid epidemic, which he has included us in, and I'm very thankful for that. Stopping gangs, prosecuting elder abuse, and fighting cybercrime. This also includes protecting Georgians from federal overreach and keeping the government open and transparent to its citizens, which is so important, especially in today's times. Chris brings the job years of valuable experience in economic development, state, and federal policy making. And the longer I'm up here, I have learned that my new middle name is policy and procedure and making laws. Attorney General Carr served as chief of staff of our beloved, I loved U.S. Senator Johnny Isakson for 6 years and was the state's top economic development official for 3 years. Georgia has held the title as the #1 state in the nation for doing business, and it's due to your leadership, Attorney General, and I'm so thankful that you're there. I also want to mention his great wife, Joan, which he couldn't do what he's doing without her, and his beautiful 2 daughters. So thank you for being here this morning, and I will turn it over to you.
Karen, thank you, and welcome. You're in the Capitol office. Welcome to the Carr family living room, and we're happy to have y'all. It's great to be with you, and Karen, thank you so much. I mean, I want y'all to know. I mean, Karen has become a friend. She's become a great friend, but she is an incredibly hard worker and does an outstanding job representing not only the interests of the constituents of her district, but y'all's interests. And I appreciate everything that she's done, not just in the chiropractic field, but Karen has really gotten involved in a number of different issues. As she mentioned, we work together, and openness and transparency is another one. I mean, it's critically important. Our office has a great traditional role in making sure that the constituents of our state have access to the people's documents, which are oftentimes with city and county governments and state agencies as well. But Karen's has become a great friend, and just truly appreciate your leadership and your service. And I appreciate y'all joining us again today. I mean, again, I've been appreciative of being invited to speak to you guys in person the last 3 or 4 years. I know it's tough. We're doing the right thing by doing this virtually, but this particular event where, we're coming to the day at the Capitol, I think is critically important. Going back to what Karen said about my former boss, Johnny Isaacson, he would always tell constituents and groups that came to Washington that whether or not he was at the Georgia Capitol when he served in the legislature and Congress or in the Senate, he knew a little bit about real estate, and on everything else he needed to do, he needed help. And so that's where it's valuable. You are the experts in the chiropractic field. And, Karen's colleagues, they probably have an expertise in one particular area, their professional field. But when you look at everything that the legislature has to deal with, and the same with our office, I mean, I think the fair application of the law is much better served, when you know what the words on the page are, but also when you get to know how it impacts individuals and companies and professions. And so to have y'all come down, I'm just really, really grateful for the opportunity to do that. And Aubrey, thank you so much. And Dr. Arario, thank you again.
Thank you.
I truly appreciate the chance to talk with y'all. What I thought I'd do, I want to certainly leave time for questions because that's the more interesting part of the event. But I want to talk a little bit about our office and a couple of the issues that we're working on that may be of interest to y'all. And Karen kind of started off. I always like a chance to kind of, a lot of folks say, well, all right, wait a minute, what does your office do? And we are the lawyers, as Karen mentioned, for the executive branch of state government. But I think it's important to quantify that because I say it's our duty to defend the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution and laws of the state of Georgia, and represent the interests of the people of our state. So while we're not the lawyers for the legislative branch, as you'll see here shortly, I work very, very closely with members of the legislature to make sure that we, from a public policy perspective, moving forward in the right direction, coming to the right conclusions, because every single legislator's constituents are my constituents as well. We don't represent cities and counties, but we work very closely with city attorneys and county attorneys for the exact same reason. While I may not represent them technically, everybody that is a resident and a citizen of a city or county in Georgia is also my constituents as well. And I think we all have an interest, again, in coming to the right conclusion and getting the right answer. We don't represent the judiciary, but it's interesting to note that we do represent judges when they get sued in their official capacity. And right now we have over 100 judges that we're representing. And I just think that that's the right thing for us to be able to do. And as Karen mentioned, we have about 150 lawyers in-house, 150 professionals that are investigators and auditors and policy people and IT folks. So we're about 300 folks in-house, but we also hire 200 to 300 private practitioners when we have a subject matter or geographic need. So when you have 159 counties, you're the largest state east of the Mississippi, you've got cases that are being handled all around the state, it makes more sense to hire locals, particularly when it comes to Department of Transportation, DFACS, child support, or cases like the water wars that we have with Florida right now. And in fact, we are before the U.S. Supreme Court on Monday in that water wars case, which we've had some very favorable rulings from the special master recently, and who has encouraged the Supreme Court to throw that case out. So when you have a special need, we hire those folks. So we are about 500 or 600 lawyers. Now, let me give you a little perspective, because each state, crafts their Attorney General's office a little bit differently with different jurisdiction. But we're the 8th largest state in the nation. Texas, a little bit bigger than we are, but they have 3,000 lawyers and 1,200 support staff. And so I tell you all, taxpayers of Georgia, you're getting a bang for your buck out of our little law firm, okay? I just want y'all to know that. That's a joke. I know it's early in the morning. So we do, that's kind of what we do day to day. But let me focus a little bit on how we work with the legislature, with Karen and her colleagues and others on a couple of different issues. And she gave you a great list of some of the ones that we're focusing on. But today I want to mention the opioid crisis and addiction, which you guys are a critically important part, particularly as it comes to pain management. And I'm so grateful that several of y'all have participated in our statewide task force. But also, small business issues are important to us, particularly cyber crimes and also business liability. But let me start with the opioid crisis, because that's really one where we've partnered, and I'm grateful. A couple of different things. The data is just stark. We've had over 9,500 Georgians die of an opioid overdose in the last 20 years. That's larger than the populations of 16 different individual Georgia counties. So think about that, 9,500 people, 16 individual counties in our state. And right now it's estimated that we have about 180,000 people that are suffering from opioid misuse disorder or opioid use disorder, depending on who you're talking to. But it's a crisis, but as you know, again, it impacts everybody. I mean, again, I can go anywhere in the state. I've said it has no geographic, economic, or demographic boundaries. If I ask everybody, on this call, do you know somebody? Do you have a family member, a coworker, or are you individually potentially in long-term recovery? I mean, most everybody knows someone, and Senator Isaacson, my former boss, was one. And we actually asked him to come. We did a statewide task force meeting in Augusta and talking about the impact of the opioid crisis on rural Georgia. And he came over, we're talking in Augusta, and he talked about his grandson who died the night before he was going to graduate from Georgia Southern with a 3.9 in mathematics. And he said, but at the end of the day, whether it's a pill or a needle or whatever it may be, addiction is the issue, and we've got to be able to tackle it. It's a big issue, and I really commend the governor and the legislature for focusing on the issue of mental health and addiction. And so many folks have come together, and it's a nonpartisan issue, and it's something that we should address. So how are we doing that in the office? Well, I mentioned the statewide task force, getting all the experts in the room. It's open to all 10.5 million Georgians, anybody that has a passion or expertise. We ask 3 questions. 1, what are we doing individually to address the crisis? 2, how do we leverage the expertise and the assets that we have in the state to address the crisis? How can we partner? And 3, if there's a gap, how do we fill that gap? My preference is not to create another government program, but to actually go out into the community, go to the private sector, go to that expertise and say, help us fill that gap. And it's been a great success. We meet 2 or 3 times a year. We'll be meeting again this year. We'll get the word out to Aubrey and to your group. We'd love for you to continue to participate, because y'all are critically important, like I said, particularly as it relates to pain management. But we've gotten aggressive. We have filed a lawsuit. This is an issue that, statewide or nationwide, attorneys general of both parties have addressed this issue. We in the state have filed a lawsuit. We've got a great team that filed suit here in Gwinnett County in the business court. We've sued the manufacturers and the distributors, and that's on path to continue to go forward. And obviously with COVID, it's pushed back our trial date. So we're looking out into 22 or 23 on that, but we continue to go forward. In the meantime, there are conversations about settlement that hopefully we can get there. But we did have some good news last week or 2 weeks ago. We had a nationwide settlement with McKinsey, the consulting firm, about $573 million settlement, of which Georgia will get $17 million. And Karen, we're working hard with the governor's office, because that money goes to the general fund, but to work with the governor's office to make sure that we work with our partners. And my hope and I'm strongly encouraging everybody is let's get those resources where there is limited or no resources for rehabilitation. And that is generally non-urban areas, and where law enforcement ends up being the safety net, and individuals who are suffering from addiction just continue to get arrested but don't get the help that they need. So really, and everybody's been very receptive to that, and I would hope that that would be a good unifying cause for all of us to try to get some of these resources out. And so again, I would encourage everybody, please join our statewide task force. You can go to law.ga.gov. Karen can reach out to us. We also have a website that has information broken down by different sectors, medical and students and athletes. It's called Dose of Reality. It's doseofrealityga.org. Please check that out. And if you have any information that we can add to it, we're always trying to make that better. So again, big issue for us, and I appreciate what y'all have done. And then, as I mentioned, y'all are a part of or run small businesses. And putting on my economic development hat and having worked for Isaacson, who was had a real estate company for a long time, business is kind of my background and my passion. And a couple of different things that we've seen. Again, cyber crimes, a big issue, or scams that we see. And right now, as we're going into tax season, I just encourage everybody be careful. Whether it's tax returns, tax filings, there's a lot of scams that we're working with revenue on, and working with our federal partners. This is a big time for criminals to try to get access not only to money, but to some personally identifiable information, and then identity theft is big. So please be careful on that. But one of the things that we've seen in working on cyber crimes, and we have sent one of our attorneys, one of our prosecutors over to the U.S. Attorney's Office to train for a year on cyber crimes to make sure that the state's at the table. And we work closely with the GBI, and we got a great cyber training center over in Augusta, and their cybersecurity, the GBI cybersecurity task force is over there as well. But one of the things we've seen is major companies have the money to spend on cybersecurity. But when you look at small businesses, houses of worship, and nonprofits, it can be existential to you, the functioning of your business, the existence of your business, if somebody gets hacked. So we've put together actually a cybersecurity training guide, and we can get that. We've got hard copies. We've got links to online versions, but it's best practices. It's training. It's ideas and ways that small businesses can protect themselves. 95% of all businesses in America are small businesses. And we think that this is some way that we can help educate. And then when these issues occur, prosecute. But as you all probably are aware, a lot of these crimes occur overseas. So you got to have a good partnership with the U.S. Attorney's Office, the FBI, and others. Because oftentimes we see it's organized crime, it's state-sponsored cyber crime. You see Russia and China and Eastern Europe and that sort of thing. But we're in the fight and we're in the game. We want to make sure that we protect small businesses. And finally, as we've all done everything that we can to protect ourselves during the pandemic. And again, I want to commend the governor and the legislature for the leadership. Issue 1A for the governor has been the protection of the people of this state, and 1B is the protection of the economy, making sure that we can go forward. And we work with the legislature, and I commend them again for extending the business liability protections, because again, look, we want to encourage everybody to be safe. We want people to take this seriously, follow federal and state healthcare guidelines. But there's a lot of headwinds in there, and it's tragic if anybody gets COVID. Certainly, if they've died as a result of this terrible virus, it also can be completely upsetting and disruptive to families if a business closes or somebody loses their job. So this business liability bill has been important. I think there's been enough headwinds trying to keep people from opening businesses or operating. And if you do the right thing, if you follow the guidelines, the health guidelines, CDC does, DPH and others, then you should have a certain level of protection to make sure that down the road, somebody doesn't come back and say, that you did something that you shouldn't have done, or they got the virus from your particular place of business. And we want to make sure that we continue to move forward on that. So a couple of different issues that we've been working on, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk about those. Now, I know we've got a few minutes left, and I hopefully left, I think, about 10 or so minutes to answer questions, because I know that's more interesting to folks. So I'll open up the floor however we want to do it.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Carr.
Absolutely.
Everyone here in the room is actually muted, so please use the chat function to raise questions for Attorney General. Currently, we don't have any questions, but please type away.
It's because everybody's coffee has not yet settled in. I get it.
That might be the case.
That's why I've got mine, so we're set to go.
We talked about a bill yesterday. So many people have had loved ones pass away, especially our elderly. And I don't think there's anything worse than dying alone. And yesterday we did look at a bill that would allow the legal person to, whoever's making decisions for you, to be able to get into the hospital. And then there was a piece in there for nursing homes also. The touch of the human hand makes a big difference in life. So I look forward to that bill moving forward.
Well, Carrie, that's a great point, because I've had a lot of folks that have come up to me and have asked why I or the governor won't let people get in. I can tell you that's the most heartbreaking thing I've seen. There's no, and what's interesting to me, and I appreciate y'all taking it up. And again, it goes to this theory that I said at the beginning. You got to have experts at the table, because we've been dealing with this virus now for a year, and some very smart healthcare folks, scientists, have not yet completely figured out how we balance keeping a facility safe so it's not a super spreader, with allowing human beings to see one another. And it's again, I'm a business major with a law degree, so I encourage everybody and champion everybody to get together to solve that problem, because you see the images of people looking at each other in windows and touching hands. It's heartbreaking. It's absolutely heartbreaking. So I appreciate y'all doing that in a thoughtful manner, both from just a human element as well as from a scientific one. So thank you for taking that up.
I have one comment. I know how consumer oriented you are and how you do such a great job of protecting the constituents of Georgia. As you know, the feds have put some protections in from eviction on non-commercial property, which has been good for some and bad for others. But what I've recently seen with some of our patients and some of our clients is, even though they are protected federally from eviction, what the larger companies are doing, particularly one out of Texas, is they are then going in and turning off the power, which results in a constructive eviction. And I'm just wondering if there's anything that can possibly be done to protect those folks.
Well, you have done a great service by bringing that to my attention. I hadn't heard that yet. So let me go back. Let me go back to the team, because we've been working with Atlanta Legal Aid on this issue over the course of the last year. We've been dealing with others, and again, my job is to look at what the law in Georgia says and to uphold that, but also get the word out about what the law is, because I think there are some that have taken advantage of it. So,
Yes.
Again, we look at the four corners of what words are on the page, but we've worked together with a number of different groups on this issue, but I hadn't heard about turning the power off. That does,
It's a constructive eviction. That's what it is. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
We do have a couple of questions, Attorney General. The first one being, you mentioned the opioid crisis and getting money to the communities that don't have any money for rehabilitation. But the question on the table is, how do you see chiropractors helping with the opioid crisis in their own communities?
Oh, you're at the tip of the spear on pain management. And I mean, I think that's one of the great, again, I think the usefulness of our statewide opioid task force has been able to get people in the room and talk about alternatives to using Oxycontin and others. And you guys have been a great partner in that. So as you know, again, pain management, big issue that we're talking about. You have provided great alternative measures to folks, and we'll continue to push that, and we would encourage y'all to do the same.
And there was just a statement that, understanding that many people are arrested for the opioid abuse, what measures are being taken to see that these people receive the help that they do need? And, and certainly, chiropractic, reaching out to their patients is one way, but, not everybody utilizes our services. So for many of these folks, it's not their fault, and it's the fault of that they fell victim to this horrible addiction through one way or another. So are there specific measures that we can see that can help them get the help they need?
Absolutely. Well, one, we've got, again, a Dose of Reality GA. One of our pages has options for folks that are getting help, different forms of rehabilitation and different services that are provided. And we, in fact, that just reminds me, we may need to look at that and see if there's an opportunity to put other alternatives on there too. But that's number one. But it comes down to resources. And Dr. Rario, that's what I was just mentioning before, when we've got to be able to, one of the things, again, when I talk with rural sheriffs in particular, they talk about arresting the same people over and over for addiction, not because they're necessarily, committing crimes. It may be property crimes, again, which aren't insignificant, but it's people that have an addiction problem. There's nowhere to take them to get help. And this is an opportunity for us through these lawsuits. And again, as former economic development commissioner, I'm not a big fan of just going out and suing companies. But when you look at what's been done in this particular space with this particular issue, it's critically important that we hold some of the manufacturers and the distributors accountable. Those that knew it was more addictive than, or we allege, we would say they knew it was more addictive than they were letting on, and others in the distribution space that were looking the other way when there were improper orders that were being submitted and that sort of thing. But this is an opportunity for us to get resources, again, to the grassroots level, to cities, to counties, to nonprofits through the state, to really make a difference. And it's got to be focused on rehabilitation. It really does. The abatement piece is critically, and there's a number of different ways to do that. But the focus has got to be on rehabilitation, in my opinion.
Agreed. Okay. I'm going to make one more statement, Attorney General, because I know that we need to cut off our questions. So one comment that came in from one of our members is that you may or may not be aware that certainly that low back pain is a leading cause of injury and reasons why patients will go to a doctor for care. And this happens not only in private practice, but also in workers' comp, but only, and something maybe to look in the future, but DCs only see about 2% of these cases. And so we really need to be, us as a profession, and working with the state on a way to make that more accessible for the patient, because we have a non-invasive management, and that it's not introducing pain management through drugs that will just linger. We just will actually rehab the patient. So that's something we can do for a later time. With the end of our time here, Attorney General, we thank you so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure to have you. Thank you for all the work you're doing, and have a great day, and we appreciate you.
Thank y'all. Y'all have a great day too. Take care.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Bye now. At this time, I'd like to introduce our next speaker, who's been a great friend to Chiropractic, and that's Senator Lester Jackson. He was the sponsor of our copay legislation last year. Senator Jackson, would you like to say a few words to our members today?
Move up here, Diane, a little bit.
Senator Jackson, are you with us? Valerie?
I don't think he's with us.
Okay. When he joins us, we'll bring the program back to him. So moving on, I'd like to introduce then Dr. Leanna Carr, who's chair of the Georgia Chiropractic Association Political Action Committee. And if you would like to say a few words to our members today. Dr. Carr, you're on mute.
How's that? Better?
That's better.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate everybody being here. And as PAC chair, I would like to update you. First of all, I would like to thank Representative Mathiak and our dear lobbyist, Aubrey Valiance, for really going to the governor and making sure that chiropractors in Georgia were listed as essential during the beginning of our pandemic. You have helped to save so many chiropractic offices by doing that, Karen, and I appreciate everything you did to help make that happen. And sometimes we forget about that. And I just want to make sure that everybody knows that Karen was essential to making that happen, along with our lobbyists. So thank you very much for that. And I would like to give an update. We did have our conventions. It was interesting, but it was successful, and we plan to have them again in May. And the PAC does carry on the instructions from the GCA board. And so our major goal that we've been working on is to get 80% of our GCA members as PAC members, which is a separate line item of payment. So I would encourage all that are not PAC members to please become a PAC member, because this is really where we're able to move ahead and put chiropractic onto the state platform in many ways. And from our convention in October, the PAC had several fundraisers, and we were able to earn about $6,000 from wine toss, whiskey pull, and baskets. So it was of great fun. And our board is comprised of Dr. Mary Watkins, Dr. Chris Nelson, Dr. David Wren, Dr. Nyla Smith, and Dr. Randy Mayfield, who has done a magnificent job in working at the state capitol on behalf of GCA and our PAC. Thank you very much, Randy, for all your hard efforts behind the scenes. And that is my report. I would like to add one more item. For all of you that are not aware, please visit Relief Without Addiction. That is a dual project with Life University and GCA, funded by the Harris Foundation, which really was sparked our entire copay bill. So if you're not aware, please visit reliefwithoutaddiction.org. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Carr. At this time, I'd like to have a few words from our lobbyist, Mr. Valines.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 119, our MDDC bill, passed out of subcommittee unanimously. It passed out of full committee unanimously. Hopefully, the lien bill will be dropped in the next day or two. One of the things you're going to hear these legislators explain when they're on is how difficult it is to do anything this session, because you can't get access to legislative counsel. Their door is locked. You have to email back and forth. So if you have an idea, you've got to do that. I had emailed the lien bill early on, the exact lien bill without any changes of any words, but still they have to put backings and everything on there. The interesting thing about what is going on with the MDDC bill is what I predicted would happen. Everybody now wants to have this. The PTs have asked to be on, the dentist brought it up, and others are now coming. And what I have said is we have no opposition with anyone who wishes to incorporate with medical doctors, but we want this taken on an individual basis, and we do not want them as riders on our bill. So far, so good. Karen is supposed to go to rules this morning and ask for it to be put on. And that's the next step. It will go to the floor of the House and then go to the Senate. And hopefully we will not get caught in COVID this year, and they will not break early and will pass. There's a couple of other things that are out there. The COVID legislation that we included ourselves in last year, that Beverly and Trey Kelly were so important in getting us included, along with Karen. That will be coming up for extending it. And we're going to be watching that. There is a massage therapy bill that has gone in. Right now, that massage therapy bill does not address scope. It simply only addresses continuing education. So we have no issues with it, and we can support it. There are a couple of other bills that we're watching. One has to do with telemedicine that will affect all healthcare providers, which will be positive for everyone. The second has to do with reviewing of those who review claims that Kay Kirkpatrick has dropped in. I met with her yesterday about this bill, and she says she has some massive changes she still wants to make, but as it stands, it will address all healthcare providers, including us, and should put restrictions on who can review and how claims can be reviewed. So we're having a busy session, but I don't mind telling you, it's extremely different and difficult versus other sessions, because the only time you can reach them generally is in the morning or after they're out, because there are no pages, there are no access to the floor of the House or the Senate unless you text them by phone, and there is no access to legislative council. Committee meetings, they restrict attendance generally to 16 members. 16 from the audience. And so you have to get there early if you want a seat. So accessibility is an issue, and it is just slowing everything down because of that. I'm happy to answer any questions.
So as a result of the accessibility being an issue, how should chiropractors interface with their legislators at this time? What would you suggest?
The best way is through email or through they all have secretaries and phones, but I think email is probably the best. One of the things you're going to hear Beverly mentions, I believe, is about make sure you have a relationship with your legislature, preferably before the legislature starts. But the best way to do it right now is by email. And all those email addresses are listed on the Georgia General Assembly website. They're also listed as their secretary with a phone number, which is not quite as reliable. The best way to do it is by the email, unless you happen to have their personal cell phone.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Valines. There was no questions at this time, so I'd like to then turn the floor to Dr. Randy Mayfield, who's chair of our Government Relations Committee, and give us some update on what's happening with the fair copay effort. Randy, you have to unmute yourself before you speak. There you go.
Got it. Well, good morning, everybody. For those of you that don't know me, I've been practicing in Norcross for 43 years. And when I started practicing, chiropractic treatment wasn't included in any insurance plan except Medicare. And now your chiropractic treatment is reimbursed by most insurance plans, Georgia Workers' Compensation, auto med plans, and even Georgia Peach Care plans and better. And what most of you may not realize is the practice that we enjoy today in Georgia is in large part the efforts of the GCA and your past government relations committees and the grassroots member efforts and our great lobbyist, Aubrey Valines. We really appreciate you, Aubrey. Thank you. The efforts that were made over the past, fighting for the past legislation to protect and increase your ability to practice today, were created by long hours and considerable expense. And that's why you need to join the pack. The past year, it's been my pleasure to serve as the chairman, and I would like to give you an update on our accomplishments and the future goals. Last year, the GCA was able to pass a copay bill, Senate Bill 28, into law, which stated all insurance copayments shall be reasonable in relation to the covered benefits to which they apply. They shall serve as an incentive rather than a barrier to access appropriate care, and shall not work so as to unfairly deny necessary healthcare services. And this law was signed by Governor Kemp in July of 20, and it went into effect January 1st, 2021. And what this means to the average chiropractor is that now we have a law on the books that will help stop insurance companies from making our patients pay $40 to $80 copays for our service. All of us have had patients that didn't receive the care that they needed because of the high copays. However, we need your help to make this law work for us. Each of you will or should have received a complaint form for your patients to fill out. It was entitled Office of Insurance and Safety Fire Commissioner, and it was a consumer complaint form. Our goal is to get 10 complaint forms filled out by patients from each chiropractic office in Georgia, and then we will submit all of these complaints to the insurance commissioner at one time for him to enforce the law for the chiropractors in the state. So if you have questions about your complaint forms, or if you did not receive the complaint form, please contact the GCA office and they will assist you. potentially this copay bill will increase the number of patients that you see in your office this year. At the present time, the GCA is working on 2 other pieces of legislation, as Aubrey mentioned, and we really appreciate the efforts of our colleague and Representative Karen Mathiak. She's done a wonderful job, and we really appreciate all of her efforts. She's a true hero in our profession. The first bill, of course, was that we've got in the hopper is the MDDC bill, and it will allow chiropractors and medical doctors to practice under the same professional entity. It states, and to provide that chiropractors may own professional corporations with physicians. In the past, it's been a legal nightmare for DCs and MDs to practice together in the same practice. This bill has passed, as Aubrey said, the Regulated Industries Committee unanimously, and it goes to be heard in the Rules Committee, as Karen was going to put that in for us. It's a big step in the process, and we feel confident that this will get passed this year. Of course, the second bill that Aubrey mentioned also was a lien bill. This bill has not received a number yet, but the bill is proposed to allow chiropractors, just as hospitals and medical providers, to be able to record their medical liens for services that they've rendered. This, of course, will be of great help in your collection efforts if you have someone that's mostly in personal injury cases that would come into effect, but it would be for anybody that received care. We anticipate a lot of opposition to us joining the lien law, so we need your help to contact your legislators when we ask, and to please join the PAC. The PAC is essential for us to get this legislation pushed through. And if you haven't joined and you're not already a member, please join today. Our day-to-day progress is available on our Facebook page. And if any of you have any questions or input through relationships that you have with your legislators, please contact me and let me know what relationships you have, or contact the GCA office. I personally want to thank all of you for your grassroots effort this last year in advancing chiropractic in Georgia. And now it's a privilege for me to introduce a special greeting from my friend, Lieutenant Governor Geoff Duncan. The Lieutenant Governor grew up in Georgia, attending Chattahoochee High School in Alpharetta, and he attended Georgia Tech. There he was a scholarship pitcher and after his successful career at Georgia Tech, he was drafted by the Florida Marlins and spent 6 years in the minor league. A shoulder injury forced him into retirement. After retiring from baseball, he had a successful marketing firm, which led to multiple other entrepreneurial ventures. Most recently, he served as the CEO of a health technology startup. Geoff was elected to the Georgia House of Representatives in 2012. During that time in office, he authorized several important pieces of legislation. These included House Bill 4749, the Cargo Theft Act, House Bill 152, Michael's Law, and most recently, Senate Bill 258, the Rural Hospital Tax Credits. Geoff has always had the pulse of healthcare in Georgia on his mind. He understands how chiropractic plays an important part in our healthcare system, and he's been very helpful in the progress of our chiropractic agenda. So I would like for you to listen to his message, and I'd like to welcome Georgia's Lieutenant Governor, Geoff Duncan.
Hey everybody, Lieutenant Governor Geoff Duncan here, and it's an honor to be with you. Certainly we continue to navigate this pandemic, and so here with you virtually, but grateful of the efforts of your legislative committee, especially Randy Mayfield, great friend, and thanks for all that you do, and thanks for continuing to be a trusted source of information for us as we try to continue to navigate through not just the pandemic, but also your specific industry around chiropractic issues. Certainly, you guys are facing the pandemic just like we are. And I want to be thankful for your efforts throughout the pandemic and being nimble and agile and taking great care of your customers and taking great care of the health needs of 11 million Georgians. And so I certainly didn't want to let this opportunity go by without thanking you for working with the state and others to continue to deliver your important services. Look, there's all kinds of issues that your industry has to face. Certainly proud of the efforts of last session when we were able to tackle legislatively the paying parity issue around the co-pays, and certainly proud to put you in a great position. Certainly you take care of the healthcare needs, and I've certainly been a patient of a chiropractor going all the way back to my baseball days, but also the pain management side. And I think that is one important issue that we need to continue to champion and use your industry as an incredible resource as part of that continuum of care as we navigate through what is quite honestly a crisis that certainly you guys are well aware of. Look, I think we've got an awesome opportunity to continue to prioritize healthcare. I think your industry is front and center in that conversation as we navigate through a number of things. I think you're also front and center around innovation, and that strategy is how we deploy healthcare and those services all across our great state. So thanks for being a great partner. Thanks for working with us. Thanks for being patient with us as we try to navigate the pandemic and get this vaccine distributed out to as many Georgians as we possibly can, as quickly as we possibly can. So thanks, and continue to be that trusted resource for me and my office as we try to navigate through this. Thanks. God bless everybody.
And thank you for that message from Lieutenant Governor Geoff Duncan. We have another video message, and this one is going to be from House Minority Leader, Representative James Beverly. And Valerie will bring that up.
I'm here today with James Beverly, who's a state representative from Macon area. He's also the minority leader. And most importantly, he's our friend. He's been good to us. He continues to be good to us. He agreed to sign our bill allowing MDDC practice, but we had to drop it in before he get his signature. But he's still supporting it. And many of you on the board remember him. He went out to dinner with us when we were Macon. We had a great time. We spent the entire evening. He's not someone that just hits and runs. He's there when we need him. I walked in here, hadn't had breakfast and hadn't had lunch. He had 2 cold sausages, and he ate one, and I ate the other one. And so I'm just going to ask him to share a few things. And one of the first things I want to ask him is, what's it like being a doctor? James is an optometrist.
Good morning. I'm here with Alan Powell, Chairman of Regular.
It's important to either be in the legislature or to be part of the process as well.
Yeah, great question. Before we get to Diane, I'm giving a shout out to Diane.
Okay.
And she's been great. And so that's a great pickup, great addition to the team down here.
Thank you.
She'll get in places where you can't already. And
people
trust her.
Money
Yeah, right, exactly. No, she's great. So great job. But being a healthcare provider, being down here, you have a unique perspective as an optometrist, I think always, which is better 1 or 2. And when you're doing that, you're always trying to figure out what is the balance between, good and better and best, and then perfect. And so you have a perspective because you're always discriminating between what happens, what are the unintended consequences of this as it relates to someone's ability to have health and well-being. For instance, when we were talking about coming back, the Speaker had being the leader of the majority party talk about what is the protocol that we need to have in the Capitol to keep people safe. And so it's like, not only am I a minority leader, but even though I was a healthcare provider, it's like, look, you'd be great for this. Let's work it out. So we came up with 35 questions. We answered them all. Part of the reason why we get tested right now twice a week is because I was on a committee to actually figure out what is the safest way to do it using CDC guidelines. And because they trust me as a healthcare person, then made it a lot safer around here. So that's just one thing. But more importantly, we start looking at laws that can affect people. People have lost their jobs through no fault of their own. Healthcare they don't have because now they have a pre-existing condition, but they don't have the wherewithal to get insurance. We know what that's like. We know what it's like to write off a procedure because someone can't afford to pay it. And so when you start having those kind of conversations, it becomes invaluable being a healthcare provider here. So, so that's where we are now. We'll see where it's going.
And you work well with Karen Mafiak, who is a doctor of chiropractic.
Yes.
And I know you work well on issues, and don't mind reaching across party lines.
Yeah, she's been fantastic. I mean, like having her here, you know, chiropractic, optometry, there's simpatico. There's a lot of things that we do, being primary care docs, that we need to have coverage, that we need to explain what our education really is about. Some people think, oh, optometry didn't really quite do this, or your chiropractor you didn't do that. But when you can start educating your colleagues who wouldn't know otherwise what we do, it makes it a lot easier to have conversations that can impact our profession. So she's great.
By experience and example, they can see what you do and what you know. So I've been telling the members that this session is very, very different because of COVID, access to legislators, access to information, access to legislative counsel. You want to expound upon that somewhat?
Yeah, so you have to, before you can just walk in late, legislative counsel go in, they'll draft a bill for you, whatever. And so you have immediate access. Now you have to plan everything you do. You can't, like today, I got a bill that we dropped yesterday. I won't get it back till Friday. That would have been unheard of last year or the year before. Wow. If I went in on a Tuesday, they would start knocking stuff out and you may get it back that afternoon. So now it's like it's an adjustment period. And then you got this time constraint, right? Because we really don't know if this, now it looks like COVID is taking a turn down, which is great. People are starting to get the vaccine, which is fantastic. But what if it spikes again? Do we now have to cut off session? So it's you know, it takes a long time to process stuff. But the other thing is, it may be truncated. And so everybody's cramming stuff in, even though it's a long time to process. And so getting the bill dropped, getting it passed, it is more than a notion in this moment, because you just don't know. Committee meetings pop up just like that, whereas before it's planned out. And so you just don't know. Every day is a little different. And so I commend you for getting that bill dropped. Hopefully it's had its first read, maybe we'll get a second read and goes to committee and then we can start debating about it. But yeah, this is a different place around here.
Good. Anything else you want to add or say to anybody or give them advice about just how to get involved?
Yeah, what I would say to everyone directly is please know your legislator. If you don't know them, if you haven't reached out to her, please do that because it becomes extremely important as you're trying to expand, whether it be scope or just making sure that y'all are protected. Knowing your legislator is the first sign, the first form of defense, and so first line of defense. So make sure you do that, and that will go a long way.
I appreciate your friendship and I appreciate your candor. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Aubrey, for bringing Representative Beverly to the table today, and we appreciate his words. So that actually concludes the official meeting that we had today for the GCA's Capitol Day. What we do want to ask is that each one of you stay engaged with your legislatures. Reach out to them specifically when you receive a notice from the GCA office when we're working on particular legislation. If you are not a member of the PAC, the dues are $250 a year. It can be done through any means of credit card or automatic debiting, or even part of the GCA full dues. So thank you for your participation. The line will be open for a few minutes. If anybody has specific questions, they can do through chat. But otherwise, I wish you all a great day and we appreciate you. And are there any chats? Okay. Not seeing anything in here. There are a few people that are unmuted. If anybody would like to pose a direct question, I guess just raise your hand. We might be able to unmute you. And we do have some thank yous. And it was awesome. Well, great. Again, I don't see anything else here, so we appreciate you all and have a great rest of Thursday.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye for now.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Great presentation. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye now.
Bye. Thank you.
Okay.